Hello, I'm Bill LeMay, and thank you for watching Community Matters. We hope you'll continue to watch as we discuss issues facing our community and provide you with the resources and information needed to find solutions. Welcome. As of June 30th this year, federal funding meant to stabilize early childhood education ran out. Since the beginning of the pandemic, North Carolina has lost almost 5% of its licensed child care programs. Today, we'll talk about what that means for our workforce, our families, and employers. And joining us is Erica Palmer Smith, Executive Director of NC Child, a nonprofit agency in Raleigh advocating for North Carolina's children. Erica, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Bill.
Well, maybe first let's get to know you a little bit. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Well, I have the incredible honor to lead NC Child, and we are a statewide organization that is dedicated to advocating for policies that improve the lives of all of North Carolina's children. More importantly, I'm a mom, I'm an aunt, and like everyone who's watching today, I care a great deal about the future of our children and how we're taking care of them.
Now, June 30th, the funding stopped, and that's the federal government funding. Now, is that the funding that came from COVID initially? So we always kind of knew it was going to run out. So why don't you give us a background on it and get us up to speed? Where are we at?
Absolutely. So during the pandemic, federal funds came in the form of stabilization grants. And what these did was they allowed childcare providers to keep classrooms open, to hire and retain staff, and to provide for more families. With those federal funds running out on June 30th, that funding, as you said, is gone. However, thankfully, the North Carolina General Assembly has provided $67.5 million in additional funding to extend those grants at a reduced rate through the end of this year. Now, what that means is we're able to back away from the cliff just a little bit and look at more long-term solutions, and it just gives us more time to get out of the crisis situation that we're in. But the funding cliff, it is not going anywhere. Those funds will run out at the end of this year, the extension funds. Now, the reason those funds are so important is because without those funds, with those funds going away, our childcare providers aren't going to be able to continue paying their employees at the same wages. Now, that average wage rate for a childcare worker is only about $14 an hour. But the reality is that many of our childcare workers can earn higher wages, often with better benefits in other industries. And so we continue to see childcare workers leave the childcare industry for other jobs. And without a workforce, our childcare providers can't keep their doors open, and our families are feeling the pinch when it comes to being able to maintain their own employment and provide for their families.
Well, I was going to ask you what the child care funding cliff is. I think you've pretty well explained that. It means we're going to fall off the edge unless something's done here. Now, I believe I read somewhere where the amount of money that's lost by employers and the state is somewhere about $6 billion a year. $6 billion a year. How is that even? And we charge the families a ton of money to go to these child care facilities. So I guess I'm just a stupid person here because it's been a while since I put anybody in daycare, but that seems like a lot of money to me.
It is a lot of money. It's quite a lot of money. And I'll say, as a parent whose daughter just finished kindergarten, I'm not that far out of those years myself. But what we know in terms of that cost to our economy, actually NC Child was able to partner with the U.S. Chamber Foundation and the North Carolina Chamber Foundation on the recently released report that looked at the impacts on our workforce, our economy, and North Carolina families from the child care crisis. And we did find that over $5.5 billion are lost to our state economy every year because of child care issues. On top of that, we look at what that means for the families themselves. Those families are less likely to be able to maintain permanent continued employment. They're less likely to maintain consistent wages. They are far less likely to be able to stay in workforce training and higher education programs to be able to provide for their families. So we're seeing a tremendous loss by not really getting to the bottom of this issue.
Well, let's talk about getting to the bottom of the issue, because we have families who obviously need the subsidization to go to the child care, but I know everybody knows somebody who has somebody in child care, and it's almost as though why work? Because it's not expensive for them. So how do we fix this? At the same time, the taxpayers are spending a lot of money. So it seems like there's a lot of money going into it, yet not enough. So where do we get the other money, and how do we make this work, Erica?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned how expensive it is for families. We know that it's on average $13,000 a year for an infant in childcare. And for perspective, that is more than the cost of in-state tuition at UNC Chapel Hill. So this is incredibly difficult for families, regardless.
And we're only paying these people $14 an hour?
That's correct.
Okay.
Now, what we do know when it comes to long-term solutions is that there's a number of issues we need to address within the system. But first, we have to triage. We have to stabilize our childcare industry by ensuring we keep this stabilization grant funding going long enough to get more comprehensive solutions. So that's key point number one. But when we look at the issue more broadly, there are so many robust solutions that we can begin to put in place that are going to make major impacts. For one, we know that rural communities are struggling in some of the worst ways in terms of being able to have affordable access to high quality education. We have what we call childcare deserts in many of these communities because childcare centers can't afford to run a center. Part of the reason for that is that the cost to provide childcare is roughly the same across our 100 North Carolina counties. But the subsidy rates that are received by centers for providing care to low-income families differs from county to county a great deal. For example, in Randolph County, the subsidy rate that a center would receive for providing care to an infant in Randolph County at a 5-star center is roughly $715 less than a childcare center at the same quality rating across the county line in Chatham County. So we know that, for example, by putting in place a solution like a statewide subsidy floor to ensure that our rural communities are able to receive the same subsidy rates or subsidy rates that are more on par with what we see across the state, that would help even this out quite a bit and make sure that more of our families are able to access high quality, affordable childcare.
This sounds like a very big problem. I'm hoping we have some solutions on the other side of this break. How about that for a tease? We're going to be right back with Erica. Stick around.